pit blade works.
Hey, what is up, you guys? It's Silverfang, and today I'm back with another video. So today we're gonna be covering Assassin of Black, aka Jack the Ripper. And wow, this is one of the few servants that from Fate that is actually fairly new or fairly recent. Like, in comparison to most of the other servants, this guy was pretty much alive like a week ago, pretty much, in comparison to the other servants. Like, I think he was around in the late 1800s, I think 1880 if I'm not mistaken. So this is what I know about Jack the Ripper. So Jack the Ripper was this serial killer in London. If I'm not mistaken, that was by in the Renaissance period. So yeah, this serial killer in London was never caught, and I don't know how many people he murdered, but it's a pretty freaking famous assassin. And again, this guy is fairly recent in comparison to all these other servants that we've seen, like that were around like 8 years AD or years BC, or like, yeah, like there's like a lot of characters that are from way back that you can't even imagine how the world was back then. But this guy is fairly recent, So look, I know a little bit more about Jack the Ripper than most of the other servants that we covered thus far, and I love the approach that Apocrypha took on it. So let me tell you a little backstory of where Fate took this from. So basically, in that period, the late 1800s, so child labor was a thing in London, right? So basically, the childs in the street who didn't have parents were pretty much forced to work for either for free or pennies a week. So they were like, the society really didn't care about these kids that lived in the street that had no parents. So these kids basically had to fend for themselves, and the adults, instead of helping them, took advantage of them by making them work, doing jobs that they didn't want to do for nothing. Pretty much, it was pretty much nothing back then. So yeah, like it was really bad. So the approach that Apocrypha took was that they're gonna make all the kids Jack the Ripper. So basically, the kids formed this little group to kill the adults that oppressed them, that didn't treat them fairly, that took advantage of them. So these kids formed like this group, and pretty much killed all as many adults as they could. Now, I don't think that was the case, because again, we never knew who Jack the Ripper was. He was never caught, so this is definitely a possibility. But the thing that leads me to believe that that was not the case is because, so look, so if you guys don't know, most of the people that were killed by Jack the Ripper were women, and most of those women's, if I don't know if most or all, but most of those women's, I believe, were prostitutes. I'm not sure. So I don't see kids having any issue with those type of women, right? So I don't think that is really the case, but it was very interesting, the approach that they took. If Jack the Ripper was a serial killer who killed, I don't know, factory workers or older men or something along those lines, or not just women, I will be inclined to go that route and be like, that's an interesting take. That could be the case, but that's the only thing that leads me to believe that was probably not the case. But then again, I did enjoy the approach that Fate Apocrypha took on it. It was a really interesting approach. It got me thinking, so I enjoy that, but I don't think that that was really the case, you know. So with that being said, before we get started though, so for those of you who want to see the Karna video is made. All I'm waiting for is 300 subs, so if you guys could please help me out with that. I want to reach that goal by the end of the month, so if you guys could please help me out, subscribe, I would really appreciate it. It will really help me out a lot. Number 2, so for those of you that have been asking me about Fate Grand Order, the mobile game, so you guys might want to go follow me on my Instagram if you want to see how I'm doing. So starting today, I started uploading some of the servants that I have. I started uploading some of the summon videos that I did recently, so I recorded those. So yeah, if you want to talk to me about Fate Grand Order or give me tips or talk to me about the game, yeah, go follow me on Instagram. I'll be uploading all summons that I make, all the servants that I have, all the servants that I use. So yeah, you guys, if you guys want to help me out, go ahead, follow me on my Instagram. So that is pretty much it. Other than that, I think we could just get started with the video because I'm really interested about Jack the Ripper. So let's go.
So you guys decide to move on from the trap to the lolly. Okay, I'm not judging, just making an observation. I personally don't see anything wrong with the serial killing amalgamation of angry spirits that take the form of a little girl who eats the hearts of their victims, but I can see how that would seem a bit weird, especially for someone who isn't used to this type of shit. But hey, at least it makes for an interesting character. So, definitely. As you already know, this episode is going to focus on the Assassin of Black, aka Jack the Ripper. But before I get started, don't forget to go vote in the poll under the community section to determine which servant I cover in the next episode. Gosh. It's definitely going to be Semiramis. So as always, let's start off with the assassin class in general, which typically refers to the heroic spirit of assassinations. Go figure. Just as you'd expect of any assassin, these heroes are very stealthy and excel at covert operations. But unlike the other servants who prefer to fight nobly in a fair 1v1, the assassin honestly just doesn't give a shit and will do anything no matter how sneaky to achieve their goal. But that's mostly due to the fact that in a fair 1v1, the assassin would literally get their asses kicked almost every time. And this is because normally a servant's power is determined by how glorious their legend was, and as we saw in Astolfo's episode, that legend molds the abilities and noble phantasm that servant will have in the Holy Grail War. So because the assassin is more known for working in the shadows, the level of strength given to their abilities is nowhere near as high as the other classes. That's why hunting masters seems to be the more effective way for the assassin to win in the Holy Grail War. Now let's move on to who you're actually here to see. This cute little bottle of sunshine and knives. Now I know what you're thinking. Sam, why is she a little girl when in actuality, Jack the Ripper was this top hat wearing psychopath? Well, I assure you, there's a perfectly good reason for it, and it's not because A1 Pictures just wanted to add another cute girl to the show. We already have enough of those anyway. The Assassin of Black's true name is indeed Jack the Ripper, and it is indeed based off of the legendary serial killer. But this form of Jack the Ripper embodies a completely different part of his legend. So to explain this, I'm going to give you the most common version of the legend, and then tell you the fate-altered version. It all started in the mid to late 1800s. Old Britain was in the midst of an influx of immigrants from Ireland, which made a slight overpopulation problem in certain areas of London. One of those locations happened to be the Whitechapel Church in London's East End, which quickly became overcrowded with immigrants. This resulted in less than ideal economic conditions in terms of housing and work, so the place soon developed into an area where crime was more commonplace. The persistent poverty meant that many people had to find alternative ways to make money, in which for women, prostitution was one of the more common alternatives. As if the area wasn't already bad enough with constant petty crime and public indecency, a string of murders began taking place in 1888. Of course, this would be attributed to the Jack the Ripper that we know from history.
I was close.
This Jack the Ripper tended to attack the prostitutes who lived around the slums of Whitechapel, and each person that was killed usually had their throat sliced and their stomach ripped open. The legend of Jack the Ripper is so well known because the cases were never solved, and although the murders appear to be linked, the pieces were never quite put together completely to identify the killer.
Yep.
But for our case, this version of Jack the Ripper isn't quite as important as his victims when it comes to the assassin of Black from Fate. The reason why I gave you the whole backstory of London rather than the story of the killer himself is because other than the fact that he liked to butcher prostitutes, nothing else is really relevant. And that's because the Fate version of the story forms a version of Jack the Ripper that embodies the victims. The Assassin of Black is a collection of wraiths that were born from the aborted children of the prostitutes from Whitechapel, which, as I mentioned before, was the impoverished area where the serial killings took place. So as prostitution became more prominent in the area, abortions became more commonplace and the would-be children were all disposed in the river. I don't know why they chose the river, but I definitely wouldn't plan on going swimming in any area near Whitechapel. But anyway, it's said that once the number of children aborted reached over 10,000, the collection of angry spirits that were never born gave shape to this. Now, since she's basically a bunch of angry kids without parents combined into one, she lacks the moral judgment that a normal human being would. Then, just as you'd expect a bunch of angry spirits to do, they go out and start killing some prostitutes. And they're able to do this until the murders were finally determined to be of supernatural cause, and she was put to rest through magical means. Now, because the identity of Jack the Ripper was never found, a new version of Jack the Ripper can be summoned every time. It really just depends on the legend that the version of Jack the Ripper is based on, which is a really cool thing because the more you learn about these servants, the more you realize how much their legend truly affects their entire character. Like, you know how in one of the more recent episodes, they couldn't remember the identity of Assassin even though they had already fought once before? Well, that's because since she's technically not a single entity, but rather a collection of spirits, her physical identity gets to remain as an eternal mystery. This skill is called Information Erasure, and all information regarding Jack, whether it's her true name or ability, is forgotten after she disappears. Which brings us to her other abilities in Noble Phantasm. Let's start with her weapons. Jack likes to carry around 6 knives, 4 of which are irregular, which we see during her interrogation, and 2 that she uses to fight with. She also has a scalpel, but in Fate Apocrypha we mainly see the 2 knives that she uses to fight with. These knives relate to her noble phantasm that's called Maria the Ripper, the Holy Mother of Dismemberment, which I believe is named after the first of the murder victims back in 1888. And this attack sort of acts like a curse which only activates under the premise of 3 conditions being met. If one of Jack's irregular knives are able to injure an enemy, the damage done can increase with each condition met, or can cause instant death if all 3 are met. So, if the target is female, the environment is misty, and it's nighttime, then knives will manifest inside the target's body and instantly dismember them from the inside.
Wow.
Basically, if the target and the environment match Jack the Ripper's MO back in 1888, then the outcome is replicated in the target, thus continuing the events that ended all those years ago.
Gotcha.
It's a pretty gruesome fate to meet, and that definitely could have been the outcome for Fior had it been nighttime when Jack attacked. Although, since it acts as a curse, using this noble phantasm on servants wouldn't be as effective in instantly killing them. The first and third conditions are pretty easy to meet, especially the third one considering that her noble phantasm can make any environment misty with sulfuric acid. This is called the Mist, Darkened Misty Metropolis, and it's a lantern that releases magic-infused smoke that quickly surrounds the area with poisonous gas. We've seen this used multiple times in the show, and it makes it harder for other people to keep track of Jack's location. Jack is also given a more advanced version of the present concealment stalking skill that's given to every assassin class, and it's called Murderer of the Misty Night. Since Jack was a serial killer rather than an assassin, she can get one attack in before her presence is fully revealed, whereas in the normal version of presence concealment, once an attack is started, the enemy would be able to sense it. And finally, the very mental instability that causes her immoral nature also protects her from attacks that would cause mental damage. A good example would be if Shakespeare tried to do what he did to Frankenstein on Jack. It probably wouldn't work out very well. Now that's pretty much everything about Jack, but you're also probably wondering why she goes around eating the hearts of other mages. No, it's not entirely just for fun, it's because Reika, Jack's makeshift mother, isn't a mage and can't supply enough magical energy to sustain Jack's presence in the war. Also, no, Reika is not Jack's original master if you haven't figured that out by now. Reika is actually a prostitute that used to live with Jack's original master, Hyoma Sagara. Now this may be spoiler territory, but you've watched this far, so you're pretty much committed already. Hyoma intended to sacrifice Reika during Jack's summoning, but the master-servant connection was given to Reika instead. So Hyoma was killed by Jack after the summoning, and the command spells were transferred over to Reika. Oh, and one final thing that I almost forgot to mention. Killing Jack isn't as easy as just piercing her heart. By injuring Jack, she just loses a few of her spirits that are inside of her. But she will not die until every last one of the 10,000 spirits are gone. She basically has a lot of lives. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of my Fate Apocrypha Explained series. This was actually one of the more interesting ones I've done since they twisted a real-life event into a legend that fits so perfectly with Jack's character. Jack's definitely one of the better developed characters in terms of creativity, so I hope sharing this information with you was just as enjoyable as it was for me. Anyway, thanks for watching, and as always, if you enjoyed this type of anime content, then you already know what to do. So until next time, ciao!
Okay. So, I completely misread what Jack was. I think that when I was watching Apocrypha, I missed the part where she was saying that she was the spirit of the unborn children. Now that makes a lot more sense. That makes a lot more sense now. So basically, these unborn children, the spirits of the unborn children, started killing the mothers that aborted them. That makes a lot more sense now, and that fits a lot better with the actual Jack the Ripper murder killings. So that makes a lot more sense now. So yeah, I completely misread that. I completely forgot about that. So I don't think I watched that part, honestly. I don't know if I went to the bathroom or something, but I don't remember that. I'm assuming that she said that when she was fighting or they were fighting Ruler, but yeah, I completely missed that. So that makes a lot more sense now. So basically, before I forget, something very interesting that he said was that a new version of Jack the Ripper can be summoned every time, depending on what type of the legend you use. So that's really interesting. So I'm wondering, how many different Jack the Rippers are they now? Have others been summoned before? Because I'm curious about that. Another thing is, so I do remember that the woman that was with Jack wasn't her true master. I remember that part, and I remember that they killed the true master. So what I don't remember is who passed the command seals to the women. Did the leader of the black faction do it, or some way somehow did Jack do it herself? Because that would be really OP if you could just pass your command seals to whatever master you want. Well, honestly, you could just make a pact with the master if the master is killed, but I didn't know a normal person with no magecraft could do that. You can technically argue that Shiro did it. I mean, that Shiro summoned a servant without being a mage, but Shiro kind of was a little bit of a mage, even if he was like a really bad mage. And Shinji, he kind of did it as well, but as we know from the movies, Sakura actually gave him the command seals. And in Fate Stay Night, the original one, Shinji at least have had some sort of knowledge of magecraft. And so yeah, like that, I think that is the first time that we see a normal human with no magecraft at all become a master. It's pretty interesting. Even this guy from Zero, I think his name is CAREE, or was CAREE. He wasn't really, I don't know if he couldn't use any magic at all, but I remember that in order for him to become a master and summon a servant, he had to do like this crazy ritual where he had to embed himself with like centipedes and whatever to up his magic skills, so he was able, like, yeah, like, so I think that is the first time we see a normal human with no knowledge of magecraft, no mage skills at all, not even a mage, like just a normal regular human, become an actual servant. Although this guy, the professor from, oh no, now that I think about it, yes, so the professor from Stay Night, he was able to do it, but the way that they did it, because this is the thing, like Medea, like her case is a little special because this woman is like, she was even able to become a master herself, so it's like, and her noble phantasm is called Rule Breaker, so it's like she can find the loopholes in everything, so that her case is a little bit more believable than Jack's. But yeah, I guess it's possible for you to kill a master and then make a pact with a regular human and then have that human be your master. So okay, that's interesting. I don't see any other reason why they would do it, like, unless it's like, as in Jack's case, they had like an emotional connection because this girl was a prostitute. So I can see that. And then with Medea, she also had an emotional connection with the professor, so that's why she did it. But at the same time, I don't see why any other servant would just like hand their command seals to a regular human. It's not convenient for them, because as we saw with Jack, a regular human is not able to supply the servant with mana, so it's not really all that practical. So, and again, in Medea was a really special case. So normally a servant that does this will have to do what Jack did, and it's like consume souls, or in this case hearts, to replenish the mana that their master is unable to give them. So yeah, it's really unpractical. Next thing is her abilities. Jax has a lot of abilities that are freaking amazing. So basically the first one, and I forgot the name of it because I'm not good with names like that, but the first one was the ability that she, before she's seen, before she's spotted, before she's detected, she's able to land one attack. And that's really important when you're fighting certain servants. For example, two of the ones that I've covered recently, which is Achilles and Siegfried, which both have a weakness, a very well known weakness. One is just uncovered completely and the other one is really well known. So if you're able to land a strike before you're detected, then and again, most he did say that most assassins have this ability, but Jack is a little bit better because the ability of the other assassins is they cannot be detected before an attack has started. After the attack starts, then they are immediately detected. But this is the thing, just because you start an attack doesn't mean you're gonna land that attack. And in the case of servants, it's really freaking rare for an assassin to just like land an attack on a full power servant. It's extremely rare. So yes, as he said, most assassins just go try to win Grail Wars by hunting the actual masters, which are weaker than the servants, because it's almost impossible for them to land an attack on a full power servant. For example, with any servant that has Eye of the Mind, could probably dodge any assassin's attack. Any. So yeah, and probably any saber class with freaking, it's pretty much any, like even with just basic reflexes, most servants are just that damn fast that most assassins won't touch them. But with Jack, it's a little bit different because she's able to land her first attack before being detected. And if she was fighting pretty much somebody like Siegfried, she could hit his back before he is detected. So like servants like that who have like one point of weakness, one major weak spot, are on a real disadvantage when fighting somebody like Jack. So that's impressive. And then the next ability that she has is Noble basically she uses the combination of the Noble Phantasms that she already has. So she has one that is poison gas pretty much, and which is she is not affected by, because you would assume that if you cover the area in poison gas, even if it is your own gas, you should be affected as well, but she is not, right? So she, with that Noble Phantasm, she pretty much meets the first condition, which is to be in a misty place. And then the second condition if your target is a female, and then the third condition is if it's nighttime. So if it's nighttime, instant kill, I think, is as soon as you land your first attack, I believe. So even if like she scratches, or even if she scratches you or whatever, you will immediately die, even from a scratch. Like you'll be disemboweled from the inside out. Like that's impressive. And for an assassin who usually works by ambushing servants, then, or by ambushing their targets, then that is almost perfect, because if you're doing an ambush, you can choose time, place, and target. But I think though, her first Noble Phantasm, which makes the area misty, counts as a landed attack, which then takes away her element of surprise when landing the second blow. So maybe that ability won't work too well with the first one, but again, for somebody as fast as Jack, or as agile as Jack, if you could just scratch your opponent while meeting all those conditions, you'll pretty much win. That's pretty impressive. Although I don't think that will work on other servants with like invulnerability or all those type of abilities, which is why it's better for them to seek out and kill masters. But again, if you know the servant well, then you could decide whether you will target them or not. And the assassin class is really interesting, because think about it. If you were an assassin servant, you will have to think a lot to win a Grail War. I don't think we've actually seen an assassin win a Grail War yet. So that's really damn impressive. That's really impressive. Now, I wish somebody with the potential to probably win a Great War, I would assume probably like somebody like King Hassan. But again, I haven't seen an assassin yet win. So they like really they're really fighting like an uphill battle as soon as they're summoned. So that's really a shame, because honestly, assassin is one of the most interesting classes, to be honest. And then Jack has another ability which allows her to not, like, even if someone know who she is, they'll forget who she is after she leaves. So that makes pretty much ambushing her or making a plan for her almost impossible. So Jack actually has a lot of advantages that other people don't have, or there's other servants, other assassin class servants don't have. So she's really interesting. Again, not really all that top tier, but she could beat top tier servants if certain conditions are met or certain requirements are met. For example, she could potentially kill someone like Siegfried. Potentially. If I have to say, probably she could definitely kill Siegfried maybe 2 or 3 times out of 10. Probably, maybe. But yeah, like it's really interesting that an assassin has like a really weak assassin has the potential to kill like some of the top tier servants. That's really interesting. Somebody like Achilles, maybe, if she's able to strike his heel with the first blow, his invulnerability is removed, but then she would have to deal with his speed and combat ability. But there's a chance there, you know, maybe like 1 out of 10 she will win, or something along those lines. Now remember, she has poison, so with Achilles' invulnerability removed, she could probably just sit back and wait for the poison to take effect, you know. So maybe like 1 out of 10 or 2 out of 10 she could probably beat somebody like Achilles potentially, and that's really interesting. So that's pretty much it. The backstory or the apocryphal approach, I was completely I was completely mistaken about the whole approach. I thought it was the kids that lived in that area who became Jack the Ripper, when it actually was the soul of the unborn children that became Jack the Ripper. So that makes that even a lot more interesting. So, and since the murder was never caught, Fate could pretty much do whatever they want with who Jack the Ripper is. They can put anybody. They could put like a angry customer, dignified women. Like they could pretty much do whatever they want with that. So that's really nice. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this video, man. Like Jack the Ripper, bro. Really interesting, and I really appreciate the guy that recommended that I did this next, because I was probably gonna leave this for one of the last. I gotta say, this is probably one of the lores that I enjoy the most out of all the servers that I've done thus far. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Please hit that subscribe button if you want to see that Carno video. 300 subs by the end of the month, hopefully. So help me out with that. And again, if you guys want to know how I'm doing in the game, Fake Grand Order, the mobile game, go follow me on my Instagram. I'm gonna start uploading the summons, the ascensions, the maybe even some stories, because right now I believe I'm in Camelot. I haven't started. I'm about to start it because my servants aren't there yet. Like I couldn't win the. I think I reached that probably like three days ago or 4 days ago. I finished. What's the one before? I think it's London. I finished the one before it. Don't remember which one it was. And I got to Camelot, but I haven't started it yet because as soon as I tried the first time, the first mission, I got completely wiped. So I spent the last 4 days like leveling up my my servants. So if you want to see how that's going, go to my Instagram. I uploaded the most recent ascension that I did. You guys would probably be surprised. So that's pretty much it. As I always say, have a nice day and catch you guys in the next one.